Hello everyone, I'm Quiet, and Pokemon moves when it comes to the cards versus the games are weird. For instance, Mudshot in the games lowers speed, but on this Palpito card, all it does is just 60 damage? That doesn't make much sense. But I've compiled 10 different moves in the Pokemon trading card game that aren't at all like the actual games. There will be timestamps in the video for specific moves, and with that, please enjoy. Oh, and please subscribe if you're new. Thank you. Tail Whip is an interesting case here because in the games, if you use Tail Whip, then it'll lower the opponent's defense stat by 1. But on this Pikachu card, however, all Tail Whip does is just make it so where the opponent can't attack next turn. And even that has a coin flip chance. Now, I can see how this would kind of translate to being able to drop a defense stat, but I feel like it would just be better if maybe the opposing Pokemon could do less damage each time it's used. So maybe at first, the opponent's using 40 damage, then you use Tail Whip, and it does 35, and then it does 30, and then it does 20, like, you know? So that's what I think for that. This one does confuse me because Bind is a really weird case because I think it makes more sense in TGC than it actually does in the games. Because Bind in the games does a little bit of damage, then adds passive damage done over time. But on this Sobble card, Bind paralyzes the target, which makes so much more sense. If a snake wraps around you, you won't be able to move at all, so it will paralyze you. You will be unable to move, being paralyzed. I think the best course of action here is to add possessive damage and paralyze. Just combine the two. Because if a snake wraps around you, you won't be able to move, and every time it tightens around you, it'll probably hurt a little bit. Which I think is like a much better idea. Acrobatics is just nothing like how it is in the games. In the games, if the Pokemon isn't holding an item, then the attack does more damage. Simple, right? Well, it doesn't do that on this Hawlucha card. This move flips 2 coins, each one adding 20 damage to the move. This makes me a bit mad, because TGC does have held items, such as the Rocky Helmet or the Giant Cape. If it were me making this, I'd change it to where it would do an additional 20 damage if there is no item attached to the Pokemon. I feel this would be pretty neat and really help it stay true to the original, and it would make a lot of sense and be fair. I won't touch on Leer too much, but as you can see by this Toxtricity card, if you flip a coin in its heads, it will just paralyze your opponent. So that doesn't make much sense as Leer also does a defense drop, and this is also different from Tail Whip. And then paralysis, I'm pretty sure is just the same thing, just with a different name. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but like, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Moving on. Aqua Ring is another move that made me want to make this video, because normally Aqua Ring is a move that just causes passive healing to the Pokemon who used it. This sounds like it would be really easy to replicate in TGC, right? Just heal some damage from each turn, right? Well, no! Aqua Ring, as you can see by this Manphy card, actually works like U-turn. It does a little bit of damage, then you're able to switch out your Pokemon. This just doesn't add up to my dumb little brain. It would have been so easy to add passive healing, but they just didn't? If it were me, I'd make it to where every turn it would heal about 20 damage off the Pokemon and get rid of an energy from the Pokemon whenever you use it. I think this would work really well, be really fun, and honestly pretty balanced, instead of just U-turn. Because U-turn, if they want it so bad, they can just add that as a move. I'm sure it is, and I'm sure it doesn't work like how it's supposed to. Now we have Icy Wind. On this Vanillish card, Icy Wind does 30 damage, and the opponent's now asleep. That doesn't make any sense, because Icy Wind in the games reduces speed, therefore, why would you put it on the opponent's Pokemon to sleep? Why would you put the opponent's Pokemon to sleep? It makes no sense. I propose that Icy Wind will always go first, therefore that would replicate some kind of speed drop. And if you don't want it to go first, then you can make it to where whenever it's used, it'll make it to where you now have the upper hand for turns as long as that opponent's Pokemon is still in that got hit with Icy Wind. I think that would just be like really cool and would add a lot of strategy to the game, like a lot more than there already is. Now Water Pulse. Wow. As you can see by this Love Disc card and Relicanth card, Water Pulse puts the Pokemon to sleep. It doesn't do that in the games. In the games, Water Pulse has a chance to confuse the target. As you can tell, these don't match up. The worst part is that confusion is in TGC. Why would they make them just match up? It doesn't make sense. What were they thinking? If it were me, I would have the player flip a coin. If heads, it would confuse the target. And if tails, it would do nothing and only do the amount of damage. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't just do that. But they should just done it from the start. But whatever, whatever. Next up is Whirlwind, and in the games, Whirlwind will make the target switch to a random Pokemon. But on this Pidgeotto card, however, the Pokemon will still switch out, but it's chosen by the person who used it. I don't really like this. It feels weird how you can pick which Pokemon it switches into, when in the games you can't pick it all and it's random. I think the best course of action here would be to let the opponent choose, then it would look as if it was random to the person who casted the move. Next up, we have Will-O-Wisp. And in the games, Will-O-Wisp will guarantee a burn on the target, which does passive damage. But on the same Ninetales card that the Quick Attack was on, you can see that it does 50 damage and nothing else. It doesn't make any sense. Poison exists. There's passive moves. They're willing to make it to where passive damage is a thing. All they needed to do was just have it burn the opponent as well. Like, really? Come on, guys. Well, that was it. If you made it to the end, please consider subscribing so I have actual motivation to do this. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers. I'd like to thank Bulbapedia for helping me a lot with research. I'm not too good for outros, so bye-bye.